Welcome to the Florandorder Time Chat with special guest Steve Flora, my dad and genealogy enthusiast. Today we're going to shine a light on Find a Grave. This is a website. It's the world's largest grave site collection website, where people from around the world, including my dad, contribute, create, and discover grave sites and more. So we're going to have a chat today about visiting cemeteries, the grave sites within them, what that means for life and time, and general musings along that nature. So, Steve/Dad, tell us a bit more about Find a Grave. How did you get started? What do you do? And how does it all happen?
Hi, Christie. Yes. Oh, Find a Grave is easy, very easy to get started on it. You just go up and you could create a free account, and then you can decide whether or not you're going to be a contributor to it or you're just doing research on it. Because, if you have a particular individual in mind, you can do a search and see if they have a page on Find a Grave. And you'll be surprised at the number of people that do, probably people you didn't realize. And what you can do after you've got a free account, you can say, adopt, as I did. Like, you've got a local cemetery that isn't very hard for you to access. You can say, well, this is a cemetery I'm adopting, and I'll take requests to take photos of it from other people. Because on Find a Grave, it's not only just publishing of pictures of graves, as you mentioned, but it's also where if you create a page or if you're owner of a page, if you, for example, find there's already a page created for somebody you're related to, you can request that person who has created or owns that page to pass the ownership to you, which gives you more control over it. How many photos go up? I think that there's a maximum number, but you can add different biographical details of the individual and all that. And so what I like about it is that you have a little informal there's a communications capability within Find a Grave, where when people go up and request a photo, for example, being taken of a particular cemetery that you've said that you're willing to take photos for, they put the request up there. You just kind of go up and either accept it if you've got time to do it, or not. You don't have to do it, of course. There's nothing demanded on this. But then you go out and you can take, as a non-owner of a page, you can take up to 5 photos. And I like to take a close-up of the grave, if there is a headstone there with the inscription or the whatever the marker is, then a kind of a medium shot showing the where the grave is situated, just to give the other person an idea of what the general aspects look like. And if there's somebody right next to them with the same name, same surname, or something else which indicates a connection between the two, I usually take a photo of that too, because you never know. Often the person at the other end is, say, requesting this photo is in another state or in another country, another continent, and they can't get there. And often they're doing research in their family history of one sort or another. And this other person will tie in, this other grave might tie into the one they're researching in particular. So just kind of throw that in as an extra bonus. And what I like is sometimes, well, quite often the person requesting it, once you've gone up and put your contribution, whether it's a couple of photos or several photos, and you put it up there, and you often get nice little messages back from them saying, thanks a lot. This has added to what I know, or thanks a lot. This person is some relative of mine in such and such a connection. And some of them are really nice. It's just a way of communicating with things, because visiting a cemetery anyway, especially one you get to know quite well, as you do if you go out to your local cemetery quite a bit, like I do several times a month, just following through on some of these requests. You see other little stories there. You in getting to the one that's been asked, you've been requested to look at, you of course see this or that other stone or inscription along the way, which just makes it interesting. It adds, you always kind of come back with a little bit of a query. I wonder what that story was, or a little bit of sadness when you see the really young kids who have died, with only a few months of life, or sometimes just in the same day, birth and death. And I find it's certainly not, it's, you get a feeling of being able to do something for free, just out of using a little bit of your spare time, helping somebody else. No money is exchanged. It's just gives you a good feeling, as well as just bringing to mind more that, hey, we're all going to wind up in one form or another in such a place like this. And when you go out to the cemetery, like the cemetery closest to where I am, it has some prominent figures in it. Most of the people there are just ordinary people, and they're from a whole range of religions. There's no one specific type of people or one specific belief that people have, or non-belief, because there's lots of different ways of being buried there. You see the full grave experience of the full tombstone, the whole plot covered with some type of material, concrete or stone or what have you, and all the way down to just merely plaques, or that it's just in memory of someone, or it's just their ashes might be there. There's no set thing that everybody is in the same type of thing, which is kind of like life. We all end up in different ways, and it's an inevitable end to our experiences here, is winding up in one form or another of that final stop. And and that, whether or not you believe there's an afterlife or not, I mean, physically we end in this way. It doesn't matter what your religion may be or may not be. So it kind of just makes you think, and at the same time, you're just helping someone who's still with us here, and yet thinking about people who've gone on before. Bring to mind your own mortality, but again, it's not a sad feeling. It's just a kind of helps you accept, if you will, rather than people who say only go to a cemetery or something like that when someone has actually died that they know, and it's all grief and sadness. This is kind of it's a calm completion of life's journey, if you will.
Yes. Well, before we go down the philosophical route, I'll just take you back to more of the logistics, I suppose, of the work that you do at the cemeteries. One, what has been your furthest request? Where has that come from? You've mentioned that they come from out of state and also overseas. What has been your furthest request?
Well, of course, you never really know where the people are, because it can be done quite anonymously, unless because you can create a kind of an anonymous name instead of your full name if you don't want to reveal it. And it's just when people come back with a thank you, where they say where they're located. And the farthest at this point, well, it's been Britain, the US, South Africa, people like that. Because with us being here in Australia, a more or less Anglo-centric country, you can see where the ties are through families, and they're in North America, the US, Canada, Britain, the former British colonies in Africa, things like that. And increasingly, there's quite a few, of course, too, from Eastern Europe that come in. And so it's basically a broad net that I never really know. And like I say, unless someone comes back and said, "Oh, I'm in such and such, and this is my grand aunt or something, and thank you so much," and it adds a little bit to their. In a way, it's kind of like the stones themselves. Some of the stones or inscriptions or plaques have just merely a person's name, their birth date, death date. Some of them just have their death date. They don't say where they're born, but some are mini biography. Some have their birth and death dates, names of children, where they were born, where they died. There might even be some hint of a little bit else in their life, whether they were in the military at some point, things like that. So every one is different. Some of them even can be completely in a foreign language, which I can't read. So I have to get often input from the cemetery management themselves if I'm at a loss. And I'll send them an email and say, who's on each side of this particular person's plot? And then it helps you zero in on it.
So it's a bit of a puzzle, like having to figure out a puzzle as well.
Oh, yeah. And oftentimes you can go and have the exact plot number, but I've found at our local cemetery, that's why it's important to have a connection, adopt a local cemetery that you go to quite often, rather than saying, oh, I'll look at all requests in a 50-kilometer area, anything, because every cemetery is different. Even within the ACT here where I am, each cemetery in their system is set up differently. So you get to know your local cemetery. It makes you kind of a more knowledgeable person about it and easier to find the different stones. And sometimes, unfortunately, you get a request to go and look, even if they have a plot there, and you find, well, there's no stone at all. So people were just buried or their ashes put there, but their survivors didn't put up any stone or plaque or anything like that. So you just send them a picture of the plot itself and say, unfortunately, there's no stone, no inscription, but this is the plot specified. So and you see that quite a bit, actually. Yeah, it's one extreme to the other. Some very, very elaborate stones or monuments, down to most simplest. And often I find the more prominent a person, the simpler the stone will be, which I find quite touching too. It's like almost the person saying, I don't need an elaborate stone, because you can read about me. You can, and then other people who you never heard of have some of the most elaborate stones and monuments put up, and it always hits you. Then you start wondering, oh, is this something the one who passed insisted on, or is this guilt from the survivors, or is this just trying to spend money to show others that, look, we have enough money to put up a big monument to our father or mother or something like that. It's all these thoughts that go through your head when you're there, or through mine anyway. I just find it very thought-provoking.
And I suppose from an early age, we've always done historical trips and site visits and things like that, and gone to cemeteries. So although there was one instance when I was staying with a friend and their house was opposite a cemetery and I couldn't sleep that night. But other than that, I have felt comfortable in cemeteries during the daytime. As you mentioned earlier, like they are a calming place. I find them quite peaceful, and it is a good reflection to think about where your life is at, what you're using your time on. And it, yeah, I think if it is just somewhere that you're going to to say goodbye to someone and not going there regularly, it can be quite a sad place, or a place that kind of falls into the Hollywood movie, stereotypes. But otherwise, it's a very calming kind of place, I find.
Well, that's another thing with visits. If you're going fairly regularly, you start seeing some people there kind of regularly too, who are like, there's a few at a local cemetery here you'll see just sitting by a grave. Or often you see people with the more elaborate graves. They're out there sweeping and tidying and all this stuff, so they've kind of taken, well, they do own the plots, but a lot of times you see, well, once this person was buried, nobody seems to visit again. So I think it can be one extreme or the other. Like you're saying with personal experience, some people only go to such places as cemeteries when somebody dies. So it's always a sad experience rather than a commemorative one where you go periodically, and especially like usually cemeteries are big nature reserves too. It's just the wildlife benefits from the way they are, and left alone. And it's again one of those things where people put in a lot of resources at sometimes burying people, which then just gets more or less shoved in the ground and forgotten about. But there's these unanticipated benefits to nature and wildlife and trees and you name it. So that's kind of a renewing feeling too that you get.
Yeah. And I'm often surprised at that you are getting several requests a month, that you are having to go quite regularly. One, I suppose it's good to hear that people are interested in their family history, and that's happening, and that this service is then helping bring all that together. But I know from your process that you do a time management exercise tactic that I often teach my clients to do, which is batching. So rather than going out every time you get a request, you save it up for, I think it's five requests you do at a time, is it?
Yeah.
Or you wait for a bit more?
Yeah, five to seven, I think, because the process I've used probably isn't most efficient, but I find it beyond that, starts getting too complicated. And so that keeps it more in a manageable size. And like looking at my profile, because something I forgot to mention, as kind of a slightly encouragement for people. Once you sign up to find a grave, your profile there, they have, for example, your name and how long you've been a member, and a homepage if you have your own type of web page you're wanting to give people, direct them to. But then it'll go on and keeps a tally of how many photos you've taken for other people, how many volunteer photos taken, photo requests you might have asked others for, things like that. So it adds kind of a little bit of a competitive element if you like to keep it. I like to just see it and just keep track. It's like I've taken up to this point like just 763. I've filled 763 requests for people, but with that, I've added to Find a Grave over 2,500 photos, because I say I don't just take one photo for each request. I take several, and it just gives people more of a feeling as to where how this plaque or this stone, this headstone, is situated. Of the surroundings, and also if they ever get a chance to visit this particular cemetery, it gives them a little bit of an easier way to locate it, because that can be a problem with people who don't visit a particular cemetery that often.
Yeah, and I just did some quick math. So you said 763 requests you have fulfilled.
Yeah, 763 to now. Yeah, to now.
Yeah, so if that had been 763 individual visits, that would have been very time consuming. But with your batching technique, roughly that's about 37 visits. So it just shows how much that saving up those like and like tasks to then go do it in one hit saves you time and energy and focus. So
for sure.
Very good example.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, if it was located closer and you could just, wander out of your house and be there in 5 minutes and back, you could do it less. But I found, just going the several kilometers, because going the several kilometers there and back and the time there takes up an hour and a half, say. So if you can combine that, and also, once you get to the cemetery, you have to decide what route you're going to follow to cover, so you're not zigzagging back and forth, because again, it ties in a little bit to your management, because you do have to plan. A little bit of planning goes into it to where you're not spending half your day doing it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Which links us back to the point about mortality and making the best use of our time. So which you mentioned is one of those key thoughts that comes to you when you're at the cemetery. So tell us a bit more about that, about those thoughts about mortality, about where we all go, all of that life management aspect of the cemetery. End of life management.
Well, as has always been said, we only have a certain amount of time here, no matter who we are, no matter what resources we have at our command, money-wise, and everything else. Visits to cemetery and making notes of just passing inscriptions just bring back to mind that some of us have much less time than others. And just thinking, well, this is unavoidable, and trying to, make the best use of the time while you're here, or to just do good with it if you can. I mean, that's where I find such things like Find a Grave nice, because you're doing something that you don't have to do. You're not getting paid for it. You're not getting monetary compensation. It just makes you feel good that you're helping somebody in a good Samaritan type of way. And then also at the same time, if you have a reciprocal need, you'd like some information about one, you don't feel bad about asking others if they could do the same for you. And a few times I have, people have come through, which is nice. And and I think in today's life, we can get too caught up with the next update for this, that, or the other, the next passing interest or fad or whatever. And going to someplace like a cemetery just kind of calms you down more. Also, it's there, along with all the other things, you get exercise. Usually, and the same one with the local one to us here, it's quite a big expanse of territory. And so you get in if you're into daily walks and things like that, you get quite a bit of it in that. And so you're killing, again, the old proverb, two birds with one stone, and getting some fresh air and doing a favor for a anonymous person that you don't know. And it just adds to a nice feeling for the day.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And to wrap up our session, if people were to visit the Woden Cemetery in Canberra, what is the one grave that they should go check out?
Well, I always, when I'm there, I just wander by Doc Everett's and his wife's grave. He was he's probably the most prominent person buried there. There's some other well-known, well, not quite as well-known names, or even his name nowadays might not be that well-known to many people, but he was head of the Australian Labor Party for much of the 1950s. He was a Supreme Court judge in New South Wales. He was a lawyer. He was an Australian delegate to the forming of the United Nations, which is the big note on his stone. And so he's the most prominent as far as I'm aware there. A lot of military people, you know, some sirs and all that. I haven't run across yet any lord or whatever, but there's a few sirs there, but they kind of get blended in. Yeah, I think probably Doc Everett and his wife are the two most prominent, and she happened to be an American actually. And like I said, they're side by side, and neither one of them stand out. There's no fluorescent lights blaring down from top of them. The only thing that stands out is he's got a big stone embossed with the symbol of the United Nations on it. So that's which I found impressive. Yeah. And one of your grandparents, but he wasn't prominent. Yeah.
That's all right. So all ending up in the same spot.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Steve/Dad. And yeah, I'll make a note, find a grave for those who are interested in either contributing yourselves or finding a grave. So thank you very much.
Okay, good to talk to you.
Thank
you. Anytime.